good evening, good day, everybody. We're very happy to see everybody here on our session on Prime. First of all, I want to tell you that Rabe joined Prime last year, and we're very happy of that. We couldn't stay more outside this big event. So, and the next week will be the special Prime Steering Committee in Munich, where we meet all together. And we think that the questions of the principle of responsible management education are very, very important for all those who are dealing with the business education in the world. The same as in Russia, of course. And let me give the floor to my colleague, Irina Sennikova, who is the leader of the Prime Committee of chapter of Eastern and Central Europe, Eastern Central Europe, yes, and we will just moderate the discussion together. Irina, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, and this is not that we agreed with Natalia that we will dress ourselves in the same style. It just happened.
That's good.
So we'll work in synergy, so that the session is interactive and interesting for all of us.
Yes.
As part of an introduction, I would like to say that the theme of social responsibility, ethics, sustainability has been here since first session during the forum, from the plenary. And during the plenary also we heard of different challenges the globalized world is facing, like fragmentation, digitalization, protectionism, income inequality, and many others.
And dialogue.
Yeah, what we as educators can do in this respect, to what extent we can contribute to making the better world, to what extent we can contribute to preparing responsible managers. Do we need responsible managers? This is the issue of our discussion. And in fact, we started talking about social responsibility probably from the times of Enron scandals, and by now we would think that this became a history. Things like Enron, milk scandal in China in 2008. But again, nowadays in 2015 we have Volkswagen scandal, and it seems that none of the penalties, including death penalties, life sentences, billion fines, stop businesses of being unethical. And in fact, during the previous discussion, Boris Sherbakov from Dell EMS also was talking that the companies should set the red line. But the question is where companies or where business school should draw this red line. Is there really universal approach to ethics, or it is really individualized? I think this really that we, in these 2 hours, we have to come up with, finding some of the answers to this question. And we really have the distinguished panel. Not all our panelists are sitting here in the front. We have panelists also here. We have 2 hours, so we have to be quite efficient. And probably starting, we will give the floor to Jonas Hartley to provide us the general framework, who is heading the leading Prime initiative at the United Nations. And we thought it would be really logical if we start with you, Jonas.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I think you have to turn off your microphones, otherwise we have an echo. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's the first time I see the Principles for Responsible Management Education in Russian, so I'm very pleased about this. And of course, here at the Gaidar Forum, it's important to bring this discussion of values and ethics to the market, not only in Russia, but also in the CEE region. I think, Irina, you talked about some of the topics from yesterday's opening session, and I just wanted to bring that also up. I think we are clear we live in a global world, but we have the threat of living also in a very fractured world. And yesterday in the opening session, the Russian Prime Minister and the other panelists were talking about this. Just 2 facts maybe to bring that up. I mean, we live in a world where 8 men own as much as 50% of the world population. 3.5 billion people, again, own as much as 8 men currently. So we have a huge income divide. The second point of reference is scientists tell us in an environmental space, we are currently on a trajectory by 2100, not so many years, to have an increase in the average temperature of about 3 degrees Celsius in comparison to pre-industrial levels. The threat of climate change is real. And I think these pressure points, plus the political landscape, have to be taken into consideration when we look at what companies, and of course also by extension what business schools, should teach what responsible leadership is about. But this is not just a moral cause or a moral call from the UN. This is also a very real business case. And I wanted to bring up one quote here from the annual letter to all CEOs from the CEO of BlackRock, which was issued yesterday. And if you're reading the news, the New York Times yesterday made up with a huge story about this in the economics, on the business side. This is basically one of the biggest asset managers in the world, saying yesterday in their annual letters to their investors, but also to CEOs of the companies that BlackRock invests in, that to prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it makes a positive contribution to society. That is a major asset manager in the US and globally who is calling for environmental, social, and governance issues to be integrated into financial management. So this should be a wake-up call, if you haven't heard it, of course, not only to the finance professors in your business schools. This should be a wake-up call to everybody who is teaching management and business. I come from the United Nations. I'm here joined by many signatories of the Principles for Responsible Management Education and some of the steering committee members. We'll also hear from Andrew and from Danica. So this is a global movement that I'm helping to represent here. So we will hear about how business schools have reacted over the last 10 years in the course of our debate. So I won't go much into detail here, but I want to bring you 3 points. One is the United Nations and its member states 3 years back have created the Global Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and I want to highlight how the Sustainable Development Goals are relevant not just for nation states, Russia, CE, and globally, but also how they are relevant for business and business education. I want to talk secondly about how business schools are doing in this regard, and then thirdly, show you briefly how Prime as an initiative can help you to adopt and embrace the Sustainable Development Goals in your teaching courses, of course, in your research, and also in your partnership with other stakeholders, most importantly, business. Because this set of 17 Sustainable Development Goals is now more and more embraced by businesses. I don't know if somebody saw the sign when you walked into the building earlier this morning that Unilever, the big corporation Unilever put out. They are promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. And I was quite happy when I walked into the building this morning that we saw a big banner of one of the promoters of the Gaidar Forum talk about how Unilever is helping to try to achieve these Sustainable Development Goals. Because what this agenda is about is, on the one hand, point out the major challenges. So again, poverty reduction. Goal number 1 is to eliminate poverty by 2030. Are we on a good track record? I think we can say yes, because the previous engagement framework, the Millennium Development Goals, had one goal of halving poverty by 2015, and this goal was actually reached in 2010. So we do have a track record when we put out these global goals. They can actually be achieved if there are concerted efforts, but the important message here is it is not just governments, because again, we live in a global world. It is businesses who help to achieve and have to achieve these Sustainable Development Goals here as well. So if you look at goal number 17, it talks about partnerships. And that's very much at the heart of the Sustainable Development Goals, partnerships between the UN, nation states, business, and civil society. And here in this space, I would also then call on academia and business schools itself in that space between business and civil society. They are all asked to contribute to help achieve this global agenda. Climate change is mentioned here in goal number 13. It refers also to the Paris Agreement, which has been, of course, also a major milestone in that regard, also launched and adopted in 2015. How are we faring according to the Sustainable Development Goals? I wanted to show you one graph without going much into detail here. This is from an exercise that we have seen come out of a number of academic institutions within Prime, and it's called the Gap Frame. If you want to look at the website, gapframe.org, you can find data for each 193 countries around the world. And I'm just showing you here the average for Russia. According to these 24 indicators, we can see some of the major challenges in Russia. And I'm not pointing out to criticize, I'm pointing out to give you information because we do need to see where each country stands. So some of the major challenges according to the Gap Frame are the carbon quotient, land and forest issues, and number 3, social integration. These are 3 major challenges in the case of Russia. But if you look at the positive sides, you can also see some of the positive trends here. So if we want to know what a country like Russia or any other country wants or has to address when it comes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, you can look at the data provided here in the Gap Frame analysis. There are, of course, also other standards out there that are trying to measure the current status of affairs, but I think it's quite helpful to have that in front of us. Now coming to my second point, how are business schools addressing these Sustainable Development Goals currently? And I want to bring you data for the first time actually now from a survey we conducted last year. And I just want to show you some snapshots, but to show you this survey was conducted in several languages. We also had that issued in Russian and Serbo-Croatian. So we wanted to provide a global framework so there is lots of uptake apart from the main UN languages. You see here, we got from, this was a survey among academics, faculty members in Prime business schools, but also in other associations connected to business schools through the Academy of Management. And you see here just the demographics. You see here the countries represented to make sure. I don't have the data specifically for CEE, but the data is representative, what I'm showing you right now, but just to show it to you, the responses came from several countries, and those highlighted here in red are, of course, from the region here, Russia and the CEE. So, according to the data, we see that an overwhelming majority of individuals said that the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, should be importantly taken up in business schools. So, a combined 84% of the respondents said so. In terms of what should be taught, this is forward-looking. This is not yet what's in the curriculum, but basically what business schools should teach. I just want to highlight here the number 1, 2, 3, decent work and economic growth. Something, of course, close to business education, but if we look at decent work and economic growth, we look at the question of fairness as well. Responsible consumption and production. Again, I mean, consumption itself is, of course, a topic that everybody talks and teaches about, but it's a responsible consumption that is being highlighted here. And then industry, innovation, and infrastructure, just as number 1 to 3 here, and you see the other results also in on that slide here. Now, interestingly, there is, when we ask the question what is currently being taught in business schools, and again, this is global, we see that there is almost like a mirroring of these number of these issues, not in the exact same order, but you see that number 1, 2, 3 is also mentioned as being addressed. Now, we didn't go further into detail of how impactful and how effective this type of education is, but at least we see that from this snapshot, business schools are beginning to take these issues, according to the Sustainable Development Goals, important or seriously. Going back to the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals itself, it's important to not just look at them individually, but to really know they're all connected. Let me just give you one concrete example, climate change. I mean, why is that connected to poverty? We're currently seeing for the first time refugees and migrants because of climate change. There are entire regions of this world which are facing droughts because of climate change. So you will see a lot of more pressure in the global scale when it comes to migration and population movement over time. It has become an issue even of the UN Security Council, which has said climate change is a security issue. So we will face more and more of these issues and how they're connecting to each other. You can't just take one of these SDGs in silos. You have to connect them and see how they all add up. It is a challenge because we have 17 goals in front of us, but that's the complexity we are facing right now. And I would say 17 goals is actually boiling it down to quite a comprehensible overview when we look at the global challenges currently. So last point, and then I'll end. I know my time is short, is to just give you a very brief snapshot of what PRIME, the initiative, can help you to do if you're a business school that has endorsed these 6 PRIME principles. And I promise to be brief and don't use all of my slides here. So PRIME has been around since 2007. We were created by the United Nations Global Compact, together with some major business school associations. Some of them were present here, AACSB, EFMD. We were then joined by AMBA and by Siemens, and have now 10 members, including Rabe, on our steering committee. It has by now in 2018 become the largest global initiative on responsible management education, with close to 700 business schools in 86 countries, which have endorsed 6 PRIME principles, and they are, to a large extent, also reporting on progress every 2 years. So this is the set of 6 principles. I don't expect you to read that now in the short time, but if you're interested, on our website, you will find more information. This is basically the set of values and principles that has been agreed to be the standard for all of the 700 business schools globally that are part of the PRIME initiative. And when we talk about values and virtues, maybe we come back during this debate. Principle number 2 talks about values, and we can bring back that question. Are there global values? Are there local values? What's the difference? That's probably a debate that we want to have here in our session. I mentioned already, schools are mandated to report on progress. Here is a snapshot of just some of the reports which we are seeing every 2 years. Schools which are non-compliant with this policy are being delisted, which is one way for us to hold schools accountable. We have over time seen a number of schools that we delisted, and this is a public list because we of course can't have any other mandate from the side of the UN rather than delisting, but this has helped us to at least keep those schools which are part of the program accountable. How are we organized? How is PRIME helping to regionalize some of the aspects? We have now 15 PRIME chapters, one here for the Russia and the CEE region, which has helped to have been launched by Siemens last year at the school that Irina represents. And we are seeing more and more activities here, but globally we have 15 chapters which are undertaking the exercise how to translate the global initiative PRIME and the principles to a regional context, because we do know, of course, that regionally we have different emphasis when it comes to sustainability and responsibility. Last point here, we have also a number of working groups in issues that are connected to the Sustainable Development Goals, and they're all actively engaging faculty members, students, and business on identifying some of the research and teaching challenges connected to, for example, corruption as an issue. We know, of course, many countries are facing this question of corruption, but how do you bring business school students and future business leaders to endorse effective strategies to address that? That's one of the answers you can find in the anti-corruption toolkit that PRIME created already 4 years ago. Some of the other topics are listed here. More information you can find also on our website. Last slide here, we have had the 10th anniversary of PRIME last year, and we were joined by many of you here. And I can say personally, we were quite happy to see the strong endorsement from the current leadership of the United Nations. We had a video from the Deputy Secretary General, but also a letter from the current Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who endorsed the initiative and our efforts. So we have a high level of support from the current leadership and of course also from the previous Secretary General of the UN to Prime. And let me leave you with that quote here. I think it's clear we cannot expect yesterday's teaching to prepare today's students for tomorrow's future. So I'll leave it here and looking forward to some more insights from some of the schools which are working with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonas. We agreed that we will give a chance for one question after each speaker. So if somebody has a question right now, please do ask. If not, we'll have discussion after we have heard all the speakers. Andrei.
Thank you very much for the interesting, actually inspiring
words. My name is Andrei Kalida. I'm in Shimas Business School. I've got a very short question. We are one of Russian schools who a year ago, actually more than a year ago, we signed these principles. It's very valuable in my opinion. And we have some, maybe, technical hurdles, so that's why I want to consult you. I mean, when a faculty member, he or she develops a course on the basis of that principle, it's quite obvious that they will deliver, the impact of their personality to the content of the course. Do you have within UN body something like, a sample course to have it like a ground, to develop special courses for schools? Thank you.
So good question. We don't have one sample course because I think it's logical that obviously there are many, many different approaches, but you can see some of the courses highlighted by each school in the sharing information on progress reports. But we have also some sample syllabi according to these issues which I showed you in the working groups. So we have some of that. And maybe Danica and Irina, if you want to talk about this from the Siemens perspective, there are some resources which you can access through the Siemens network itself. But currently I would point you to the sharing information on progress reports by schools, those that you think are most connected to your agenda. I would first point you there. And then secondly, to some of the resources through our Prime working groups, which have specific syllabi for these issues.
Thank you. A brief comment to that as well, that within Prime Chapter C, in fact, currently, the course is being developed. There is a group of international faculty members is working on that. And in fact, in Riga, on the 19th of April, there is going to be a Prime meeting, and this course is going to be also tested. So that you are welcome to join and come to Riga on the 19th of April. We will send the information very shortly
Please
about
send
that.
the information and we will disseminate it among our members. I just want to have a small remark. This is not only written in Russian, what does it mean, Prime Principle of Responsible Management Education. Also, Jonas, all these 6 principles are here in Russian, so the people can read it and just implement them. Yeah, okay, yes. I want to introduce our next speaker. It's our good friend, and he's the CEO of AMBA, Andrew Main Wilson, who is also very active in our Prime movement. Please, Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed. If I could borrow the clicker, and could I ask that if you just load my slides? Perfect. Okay, there are many topics being discussed at the Gaidar Forum, topics of huge global and Russian importance. I can assure you that this topic and those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which should come up here, these are probably now, or if they're not already, I believe these will become the most important thing in all of our lives, all of your lives, all of our lives here, possibly even more than our families, because if we don't help train business leaders and scientists to solve these issues, we are not leaving a good planet for our children and our grandchildren. Over the last 35 years, I've traveled to 174 of the world's countries. And I started out traveling as a photographer and a travel agent because I was the marketing director of Thomas Cook. As I've moved on through those 174 countries, I now travel more as a humanitarian and as a photographer, because I see the beauty of those countries, but even more clearly, I see these 17 problems. And I can honestly say that there is not one of those 174 countries that doesn't have at least 2 or 3 of these problems to deal with. So it's great that the United Nations have developed these. It's why I was very keen to be, for 3 years, chairman of Prime. But it's up to us as business schools and as leaders to train the next generation of leaders and work with medical schools and science schools, I think, bring those students and faculty together to solve these problems. 17 is quite a lot, and when you first look at it, it's almost too much to take on. So one recommendation I would have is, for your country or your city or your school, choose even 2 or 3 or 4 of them and build them into your curricula and be determined to make a real difference with them. They're also here just words, but they're very important words. But the way to enthuse students and graduates is to tell the stories behind some examples here, in my view, and even better, take some of your students to some areas within your country or overseas where these are a problem. And once you tell these stories, and once you show what's going on, any decent student tends to really want to get involved. And I'm just going to show a few 2 country examples of places I've been in the last couple of years where I've really told the story and people didn't know and want to help almost everyone I've spoken to. The first one is Sustainable Development Goal number 15, Life on Land. And this is the country of Tuvalu in the South Pacific. It's the 2nd smallest nation on Earth after Vatican City, which kind of doesn't really count because it's just a very large cathedral. But 10,000 people live on some small islands, and this will be the first country in the world to completely disappear because of global warming and rising sea levels. And here, and I went with my son, with a local fisherman, and the local fishermen say they notice every 3 years the sea levels rising. What happens is the tide comes in faster, it pulls the sand out to sea, it exposes the soil, that's washed out to sea, all the trees die, but within 20 years, this island will have disappeared. So here is a whole nation that is looking for a new home, and Fiji and New Zealand have said that they will take the entire nation of 10,000 people. But these are major issues, and it's the intelligent students of today who will solve these problems for the future. And just because this is in the South Pacific, don't think that we don't have the problem. If you think of all the people living in the Delta in Bangladesh, millions and millions of people suffering the same problems. On the same island in Tuvalu comes another problem, and that is life below water. So this is a nation living in 4 square miles, 10,000 people, 1,000 miles from any other country. And look at their rubbish. This is partly their own rubbish, but this is also washed in by the Pacific Ocean every day. And the United Nations have said that by 2050, there will be more plastic in the sea than fish. Again, it needs business leaders and it needs scientists to solve these problems because this situation is getting worse and worse. Now, just my final slide and a different example, but much closer to here in Moscow. This is known as the Cemetery of Ships. And I was in Uzbekistan, and I wanted to drive down to where the Aral Sea used to be. A few years ago, all these ships were floating in the Aral Sea. Now that sea is 100 miles away. And it wasn't corruption or evil that caused this problem. It was the Russian and Uzbek cotton growers deciding that if they diverted the rivers to the cotton fields, the cotton would grow faster, more cotton would be produced. But it's ended up as one of the biggest environmental disasters in the world. I don't believe that today your bright MBA and master students and the best scientists would allow something like this to happen, because they would understand with more responsible management the potential ecological disaster. And the local town called Moynac used to have 40,000 fishermen. It's now a complete ghost town. I didn't see a soul there. So I think if we can tell the story for our students and show examples and just take some of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, students and young people care. And I think it will make a huge difference if within all elements of your curricula, you can bring in as many of these 17 SDGs as possible. But try and tell the story and show case studies and bring together the science, the medical and the business school divisions. And no one else will solve these problems better than all of us, which is actually a very exciting thing. Armies are not going to solve these problems, and politicians aren't going to solve them. Because in most countries, politicians are not in power long enough to build the long-term solutions. People like Unilever can take a 20-year view, but most governments can't. So that's it from me at the moment. I'm happy to take any questions, but this is, we talked about digital technology and everything else. Those are important, but they're just techniques. This is really the heart of what I believe business school teaching will be about for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you. So, is there any questions to Andrew from the audience? No? Okay, thank you.
If not, just as I said, we'll have opportunity for questions at the end,
Later.
when we have had all the speakers. But now I would like to say that principle number 6 of Prime is dialogue. And of course, when we're talking about responsible management, it would be unreasonable to talk only about educators or to listen only to educators. So dialogue is also between business schools and the corporate world. And now I'm really pleased that among the panel members, we also have the corporate representative. And I'm really pleased to introduce Janusz Škrabec, who came from Slovenia, especially to participate in this forum. Executive director of Rika company, engineering company, originated in Slovenia, but now international, and also having operations in Russia. So Janusz, the floor is yours.
I have to confess, I didn't come just because of this forum. You know, I am here in Russian Federation, in USSR already for more than 30 years, you know, and the main market of RICO is Russia, is ex-USSR. And I'm very, very happy that we are succeeding in this market. And we are also opening the doors to the Russian companies into the Europe. Irina, I'm very happy that you mentioned we together have to do better world. We have to fight for the better world. Me, as entrepreneur, I'm keep thinking about this. One of my most popular Russian saying, русская переговорка, is жить хорошо, но хорошо.
It's good to live, but to live well is even better.
Good life is even better. And I as entrepreneur, I would really like to do not just for my company, but also with the social responsibility. But first, I would also like to thank that I can be here, that I have this honor. Really, I would like to thank to Mr. Sergei Mesoedov, Vice Rector of this distinguished university. I met him thanks to Danica Purk, our Dean of IEDC School, School of Management. They came together with Mr. Mao probably 10 years ago to visit Bled, to visit school, and together with me, because I also run Russian-Slovenian Business Council in Slovenia. У меня тоже орден дружбы даже, могу похвалить.
Even have an order of friendship. I can brag about it.
And we organized the forum how to do business in Russia together with Danica, together with Mr. Mao, and I was also the speaker at that forum. Thanks to Danica, I am recognized also in one book, The New Philanthropist, which was written by Charles Handy. And there he described 20 new philanthropists, businessmen in the world, and I was the only one from the Eastern Europe at that time. So really, Danica is big promoter of me, of my entrepreneurial story, let's say. You know, you mentioned, Jonas, we have very similar name, yeah? Despite we are from different countries. You pointed out first that 8 persons owns more than, I don't know how, 50% of the world. What is important is that those persons, people, they didn't inherit it, they didn't inherit this property, this money, this value, but they established by themselves to the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think what's important today is that all those people are talking about the social responsibility. They even are prepared to give back to the society majority of these incomes, of this wealth. And I think that this is new shift in our society. And I also learned this at the last IDC conference in Hangzhou by this Indian professor, Simon conference. If we had this society from imperialism, when the most important was how many states you own, countries you own, now to this capitalism, where according to Milton Friedman, the only function of the corporation is to make the profit. I think that we came into today we have another milestone, another shift, another paradigm where we entrepreneurs, we know that we have to give something back that it's not to the society, that it's not just the profit. Why is it so important today? Because if we are talking today about the robots, about artificial intelligence, etc., we need new human beings. You know, we don't anymore compete with the machines. We need different functions, different characteristics, you know. Much more is important, and now I will borrow from Danica this saying. I don't think that it's useless if I keep repeating. From high tech, we need also high tech. From high touch. So we need much more emotions, much more heart, etc. So today people, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Not just of your colleagues, how much you care about, but how much you care also about the society. Why I was in the book of that I mentioned to you, The New Philanthropist. And I would like to tell you this story because this is also somehow connected with the Gaidar, under which name we have today forum. By the way, also, Gaidar was very connected also with Slovenians and with the Bled School of Management, because we had Slovenians, we have had one very important professor, that was Ljubo Sierc. He was our dissident. He escaped from Yugoslavia, and he was in Glasgow, I think, at the university, teaching economy. And he had, with the new liberals from Russia, he had good connections with the Gaidar, with the Chubais, and today even, they recognize him as very important father of those ideas, the very important professor of them. I told you, I don't want to be connected with Russia just through business. So when I was in the 80s here as a student, I really wanted to know your culture, your literature, let's say, also your movies. I follow the movies. Your Estrada, Machina Vremen is one of my favorite groups, Vysotsky, etc. And I also followed your politics, And I will never forget one scene of Gaidar when he had, during the whole Russia at the time, having the political campaign, he had one stop and one press conference in the house of his grandfather. We all know that his grandfather, he was very important storyteller, fairy tales writer. And I saw this and I was impressed by this because I figured out that I also had this possibility in Slovenia. Because my grand-uncle, he used to be the main linguist, the main grammatic of Slovenia in the 19th century. And I inherited his birth house in one village near to, let's say, 50 kilometers from Ljubljana, Hrvatia it's called. And immediately, when I had this feeling that I am blessed financially, I didn't think just about how to upgrade my standard of living. I started to think how to upgrade my standard of giving. And but of course, we know that you shouldn't be too idealistic. I think that the most important for us entrepreneurs is what we are doing, like social responsibility, how to integrate back to our business model so that we can do it sustainable. So I decided 20 years ago that because this house that I'm talking about was ruined at that time, how to transform it into the place which will contribute to the village, to bring new life in this village, because as all over the world, in Slovenia also, the villages are dying somehow. The younger generation is going out. They don't see any perspective, And through this house, when I made it like museum, I didn't stop just with the museum, but I give also the life. So we make today, after 20 years already, the hotels around there. We made many cultural events. If you would come to visit me, I would take there. I would have for you. I would be good host, especially evenings, etc., etc. So through this, I do classes like this. But of course, you would recognize me through this, that I have very, very good approach to the history, to the culture, that I respect, If I respect the past, then I respect you, and I respect the future, etc. So I think, of course, we have to be socially responsible, we entrepreneurs, but of course, we have to try again to integrate into this business model. And I think that we do both things good, for our profit, but of course also for the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanis. One question. Any would like to ask a question?
Ljubljana, vi naravno znate Ljubljanu, da.
You know Ljubljana. It's 50 kilometers from Ljubljana.
So that.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. I would like to ask, I think we met once in Slovenia. I do remember this great performance of Mr. Gergiev in Ljubljana, and you were such a great host. So it's a coincidence that we're meeting again in Moscow. How did you develop your taste for Russia and the Russian culture?
Oh, I'm very happy. Yes, I remember together with Marina Bikova. Of course, you know, Ljubljana has also very important festival. This festival, you know, because, you know, I feel really, you know, for the last 30 years, and already my father used to work in Soviet Union. You know, for the last 50 years, this Ribnica is so developed town because thanks to Russia, thanks to USSR. I will tell you one story. Today, one of the biggest investment in Slovenia, by the way, has very, very good growth, 5%. We are getting again big import of the FDI. For example, one of the biggest is Yaskawa, the biggest manufacturer of the robots. Yaskawa in the world. This is Japanese investment. And in Ribnica is the factory which was built in the 80s. Because at the end of the 80s, you remember there was COCOM. There was an embargo of the high technology from West to Soviet Union because of Afghanistan war. Yugoslavia was something in between. We had good connection with the West and also very specific connection with the USSR at the time. My father had this idea that he will, beside all the technologies that was already successful, that he is going to build the factory for the robotics to deliver to the USSR. But of course, with a technology that was not so accessible for the USSR at the time. But he did not succeed. Why? Because then came 91, the collapse of Yugoslavia, collapse of Soviet Union, etc. In the 93, Japanese, they bought this factory. They didn't buy just because of the building, but because of the good engineers, of the good workers around there that gathered the experience thanks to USSR, thanks to all those experience in the 80s that had for Autoprom import, Stanko import, etc. And till today, they started to do not robotics, but application of the robots. You know, till today, there were no single penny invested into this factory. So advanced was already. But of course, now they go into the next move. They decided after 20 years, they are going to invest hundreds of millions in this area for robots. This will be the center for robotics in the whole Europe, the center for the servo engines for the whole Europe. And of course, if we give so much credit to you, you know, I have to show that I really care. So every year for the last 10 years, 15 years, we are organizing for, we are bringing Bolshoi Theater, we are bringing Mr. Gergiev, we are getting Rostropovich was, Maria Wisniewska was, then Pletnev, I mentioned, and Matsui, Sokolov, etc. So we are caring about your culture because we own you so much.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you. So as we are now talking a lot about Slovenia, Janas made a very right link to our next speaker, and this is the right time to give a floor to our very good, very warm and old friend of Rabbi of all the Russian business schools, the president of Siemens and the dean of the IEDC, Bled School of Management, Danica Purg. And before she takes the floor, I want to tell that she makes a lot of efforts to invite Rabbi to Prime. And Danica, thank you so much for these efforts. Andrew, you know that she was the right person who made this effort. And we just followed her recommendations and joined Prime last year. Thank you, Danica. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I can only say vice versa. My feelings are there. I mean, here. So when I came some years ago here to Gaidar Forum, I saw that I participated already then in some roundtables on panels on sustainability, and I saw that sustainability by Russian business people was mostly understood as a charity, you know, as being good and helping, and what you said, something like giving back, but not like that exactly. But more, you know, not as something that it's from what in fact depends how the world will develop. And I have to say that I'm very happy that I see already last year I saw that this is differently now developing. I'm very happy, and I also give a compliments to Rabo and to you know, to organizers of Ranepa and everybody else who is involved in this forum, because this forum really brings good ideas up. So this is my personal opinion and evaluation, and I am, of course, I felt the need to how shall I say, to push that Rabe is in the steering committee, because they deserve it. Not just because they are friends or something, because in such a country and all this, you know, it certainly has to be there. So I'm very happy. I shall try now to tell you what we are doing in this field. I shall tell you as a president of Siemens and as president of IEDC Bled School of Management. As president of Siemens, we of course try to have influence on our members, on other schools. And we have 225 members from 55 countries. So it's quite a big global association, becoming not only Central and Eastern Europe. And there we have Academy for Teaching Teachers. Because if you want to have better students and better business people, you have to have better teachers. And so we have already 640 people who graduated, and some of you are here, who graduated in IMTA, International Management Teachers Academy. And one of the subjects last, I don't know, 5-6 years is sustainable development. And one of the most famous professors in the world, Tony Bono, from Bentley Business School, he is teaching that. Its academy is every June, is 2 weeks, but you can come only for 1-2. 1 week, first week, and Irina by herself, Senikova is a graduate, etc. There are quite some people here in the room. So first week is methodology of teaching, and second week is or finance, or strategy, or leadership, or marketing, and sustainable development. Because we discovered, and this is now the most popular track, we say, because we discovered that there is no case studies enough written about that. There are, you know, there is almost nothing. So we are now developing the field and helping professors, young professors of management, to become professional in this field. So just that you know that you can come there, and I'm pleased to hear that Irina is also preparing something else on her side in the chapter, or prime chapter. So second thing is we are giving prizes to stimulate that. We have different awards. One award is for the best teaching, one award is for the best research, one award is for the best institutional development for deans and directors and presidents and rectors, and one is for sustainability. Which school and which people are the one who are doing that? And this school here from Kazakhstan, Almaty, was the winner of the, but he will tell you more. But in any case, we are very, very happy and proud to see And Jonas, you would be very, but you are knowing perhaps that, but you would be very proud to see the results. What an imagination, what a fantasy these people are having. And I shall tell you that I was, you know, as a president of Siemens, arranging that finding first 20 management schools in Eastern Central Europe from first 100 signatories. So I'm very proud. You were here in this room sitting before Harvard Business School, signing that. You know, I was really very angry on Al Gore, whom I met in Slovenia, and I told him, I said, how can you do that? Harvard is waiting and not signing, and we are doing. But first 20 signatories in the world were from Eastern Central Europe, just to know. So then I wanted to tell you what we are doing further, that we are having accreditation, which is called IQA, International Quality Accreditation. And one of the conditions to get this accreditation is to have as a subject in the school also sustainability and ethics. And we also made the research, and we are now repeating it. We made a research and we published a book at Springer in Germany on hidden champions, the most innovative companies in their field, in their, you know, special niche, and we made it in all Eastern Central Europe. It's a great book. We had 180 companies we were studying, and also Russian ones, of course. We saw that the best company in the world for ballet shoes is from Russia, etc., etc. Some very, and also, of course, for the helicopters and so on, not only for the ballet shoes. Very interesting. And so, what we discovered is that most of these hidden champions, the most innovative companies in the world, because who is hidden champion? The one who is in his or her market niche number 1, 2, or 3 in the world. And we discovered that these companies are all, without exception, also taking care very much for sustainability, for sustainable growth and behavior in general. So this is Siemens. Then concerning the school, we were probably the first school in the world that introduced ethics. We exist now 32 years. It is 27 years that we have ethics as a required subject in the MBA program and in other programs, longer programs too. That's one. Second is that we have already more than 10 years sustainable development in the program as a required subject. And we have also, I think, 7, 8 years Coca-Cola chair for sustainable development. Why Coca-Cola? Because I knew president of Coca-Cola, and he gave us some money for that, and we can make research, you know, we financed by that, and we are now publishing together with UN Prime the vocabulary on sustainability, you know, vocabulary of the terms in sustainable development. So I'm very proud. This will be coming now out in February, March. Then I have to say that we established this year, in fact, last year already, but now we are finalizing everything, saying the Global Institute for GSERA, it's called, Global Institute for Sustainable Development and Ethics. And why global? Because our partners are Colonia Business School, IBS from Russia, we are finalizing now these agreements, best Brazilian business school, you know, the Norman. Then we have South African, University of Stellenbosch, and that's it. And a Chinese Peking University. You know, China has 9 business schools, which are China 9, the best, and number 1 is Peking, and second is Hangzhou, which is also the member of Siemens. So, Zhejiang University. And then I wanted to tell you that we are organizing conferences on this topic, and together with UNGC, and this would be my advice, try to make together with United Nations Global Compact, with other associations in your country to make something, because otherwise you are just making some little steps, you know. That I learned that this is very important, and we made recently in Africa, in South Africa, the conference on gender equality for all African continent was a big success, and one of the main topics was there also sustainability. So I always want to give some examples so that, you know, I go to different conferences, I am hearing about examples, and then I try to do something. Not really copying, but doing something which is perhaps even then, you know, making some leverage on that. So this would be my, my contribution so far, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, dear Danica. Thank you. We know that you did a lot. For that, we love you for many years. One question to Danica, or you are waiting the discussion after the panelists? Okay. Then I would like to give a floor to our our very old and good friend from Kazakhstan, Asylbek Kazhakhmetov, who is the president of the Almaty Management University. Please, Asylbek, the floor is yours.
What about slider? Okay. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. I'm representing Almaty Management University. It's a great honor for me to be at such an important forum, Gaidar Forum, and to speak about social responsibility. Of course, we are a full-scale university. Our university, it's a first business school, first private business school in the CIS countries. This year we will celebrate 30 years of our school. And we have 3 pillars in our education. First is entrepreneurship, second it's knowledge management, and third one, social responsibility. That's why I'm here. That's why I would like to talk about this. Okay. Management education for me, it's first, it should be impactful, first of all. It's a lot of conceptions, a lot of theory, a lot of talks, but what is the result? And second, it should be meaningful. It should change the society through the real examples. If you have real examples, you have a right to talk about this. If we speak about social responsibility, the conception which was done by the Giffen is here, from Griffin. Yes, it started last century. First, companies established wanted to pay, to help, to do it, because they can get penalty. Instead of penalty, they do something, like indulgence. Then they started to pay because its law was established. And that time, it's certainly time of Milton Friedman, when he told that business has only one responsibility, to pay tax. But that time, it's changed. Now we have another stage by request. Not only by law, but by request as well. And 21st century, it's a new century, because we are proactive by values. It's the highest level of social responsibility. And this 21st century, it's not just only new values, but because there is a lot of new technology. And I would like to speak more about new technologies, what kind of social responsibility can be brought by new technology. You see, it can be crowdsourcing, it can be social networks, crowdfunding, social activism, social entrepreneurship, of course, corporate responsibility. First, about values. We, as the Almaty Management University, established a triple principle in values, triple win principle in values. We are telling that win-win principle, it's not enough. It was good for 20th century. In 21st century, every 2 sides, if it's winning, should be win as well. Third side, it's society. Normally, it's not existing at the deal. not sitting at the deal, but they should benefit as well. If you have such a value, your business will be sustainable. And that's not our invention. It was done by Confucius 2,000 years ago. It was done by 200 years ago by the Kazakh philosopher, enlightener, and poet Abay Kunanbayev. Man of worth works for mankind, not for themselves. And I will give in each principle only one example. For example, about how we implement that principle. Last year, ERG Corporation, it's a big corporation in Kazakhstan, multi-billion corporation, wanted to change the situation in 4 regions. Because in 4 regions, a lot of universities, but no real good graduates, whom they will be glad. As I told, we would like to help universities to change how we can help it. They applied for us, and we proposed to transform that university into entrepreneurial. If that university entrepreneurial is graduates entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial thoughts that can change that region. And they, as a result of this project, now it's 8 universities and 1 college involved. We are like a main executor of this program. And these graduates of these people will work, of course, in ERG, and ERG would like to do it. But at the same time, universities and colleges who will be in this project will win as well, because that project not just only for graduates who will work in ERG, for everybody who is students, who would like to accept, who would like to be engaged. And third win, people in the region. It's not just only students of the universities, but as well, yes, people of that regions, because it's a program, it's created for all 3 parts of this project. That win-win-win concept. When we speak about crowdsourcing, it's everybody knows about this, but crowdsourcing is a good example of social responsibility. Normally that are doing people who previously, before, was not involved. But now we have a lot of examples in all countries. That's support culture and creative industry as well, not just only a concrete example. And uniting people for good cause. But crowdsourcing, it's not only advantages. There is disadvantages, because we don't know about fairness of the motives. It's not good, less developed. It's not developed in the regions with no or limited internet access. And question of transparency, of reliability. If we're speaking about social networks, it's a good raising awareness and attention. It's a good source to unite again people. It's a collective and multiplayer experience. It's a communication, feedback, and survey tool. But the same disadvantages. Because I'm seeing a lot of social networks, a lot of fake emotions and compassion. They are speaking, expressing a lot, but not doing nothing. Why not to do at least a little, not too much expression? That means substitution of values, in my opinion, in some cases. We should think about this. There is a lot of advantages, but a lot of disadvantages as well. We have a project, crowdfunding project, with name Bare Berge, which means all to everyone. It's aimed to building a strong culture of crowdfunding that's helping to organize a crowdfunding for other people. We have a project of social activisms, so-called Asar. Asar, it's an old Kazakh tradition. It's not an invention of 21st century. And it's of mutual support and help to somebody who is in trouble. And now we are helping people with using this new technology in one of the region, Taldykurgan, helping people with disabilities, because it's not good structure, especially transportation of these people. There is no good buses, there is no real cars, and that's asking people to help to provide such services for the people with disabilities, and they are doing real in this city. and Almayu is part of this program as well. Pioneer Family Sky Resort. That's for children with autism. It can be good business if you have good mountains, good ski resorts, but the lady who is a ski resort, and sky as well. She had her own child with autism, and when she asked what he can do it, why not to help him to run with ski, and then she bought one of the small resort, and now it's a good resort for people with autism. We are calling that a social entrepreneurship. They are doing some business, but not a big one, but a lot of impact for the children. And corporate responsibility, example of corporate responsibility, Almayu and Sovereign Wealth Fund, Samruk Kaznavits, it's the main biggest corporation in Kazakhstan. More than 50% of all economy belong to this company. And they are now trying to fire 50% of employees, and they asked us what we can do it. You cannot fire just like this. Of course, you can, but it's not good for you as a sovereign wealth fund. And we decided that organize a special courses about entrepreneurship. People who they was good managers. Why not? They can become good entrepreneurs. And we are part of this project as well. And one more question, it's a social capital. We know it's a conception about manufactured capital, 19th century, 20th century financial capital, intellectual capital, human capital. But social capital now, it's for 21st century social capital, especially because of social networks, there is a good engine to help social responsibility. And for me, it's a question, what is the links between social capital and natural capital? Social capital and social responsibility. I would like to pay attention to Jonas that we should think about, that we can be part of this, to develop such a conception. What is the links with social capital? And I would like to speak more as well about what is management education we can do. Management education to empower. Of course, material sources, we can do it, we are doing. Without money, it's impossible. And without business school, as a knowledge, impossible. But most important source, it's a passion. If there is no passion, there is no real responsibility, there is no social responsibility, there is no real impact, there is no engagement. And when we are looking, Janos, to the principle, I don't see the passion, I don't see the heart. And that maybe will be our part of responsibility to bring it into the conception of management education. Concept. But it's not enough just to have such a synergy. It should be sense of purpose. It should be the engine for social development. It should be engine for social development. We, as a social responsible management schools, should create such engine and to collect such a people behind us, with us, and to do it. Not just books, not just cases, not just conferences and speaking. It should be an engine. And what we can speak about PRMI itself. It's not prime. Why PRMI? It's prime as well. Not just academic tool, but inspiring and heart-touching. We should think about this part. It's not adequately represented. We should create healthy competition among signatories on global and regional scale, like Siman is doing. We are winner of Siman Award, but not because we are winners, but because it's the right direction. Maybe each chapter can do it, then we can do it on the global level. We should, as I told you, engine for societal changes, and we should think about new extensive research opportunities. And you have a lot of reports about management education responsibility, but we are not seeing each other. What they're doing between chapters, what's the good examples? Why not to exchange them? Discuss all correlations which we'd like to bring it. Full potential. As I know, it's only 5% of the world's business schools member of Prime. Only 5%. 700, it's nothing. It's more than 14,000. Why not to engage more? Of course, it should be, as I told, they're part of many of accreditations bodies. But all university, all association have to sign that agreement as well. All accreditation side agreement. Like FIBA, for example. I'm not sure that FIBA is a member, but they are accrediting as well, business education. And many other regions and accreditation as well. Yes, I know. IQ, yes. We are proposing to do it some chapter in Central Asia. We can apply for this. But what about religion's exposure of Prime? As we look at only about 8% it's Muslim countries, about 12% it's Confucius and Buddhism countries, and majority is Christians. But peer Prime, it's not how to say, belong only for Christians. It's belong to everybody, I hope.
Most of them are atheists.
Okay, I have to put for first part of this.
This I wouldn't go into analysis.
That means we should think about what is the links between religions and responsibility, especially management education responsibility. And we think that Prime Award should be established, not only Simon Award on the global level, but it should be certainly about synergy, university and business and government and NGO. Results should be tangible and heart-touching, not an academic one. And it should be sensitive and focused coverage. It can be local, it doesn't matter. Size, it's not matter. But heart is matter. Impact is matter. It can be regional or even better if it's worldwide. And of course, we can offer, for example, international project to support underprivileged groups of society. For example, Prime give an idea, the next year we will support 5,000 students in the world. And every chapter can take responsibility what they can. For example, we will certainly take some of them as a school which signed responsibility. Yes, it can be 2,000, then can be 3,000, then can be more, then can be more and more. And as I told, we are proposing a new chapter in Central Asia. It's about why I'm speaking about arts as well. We have an MBA in NGO program. It's in our opinion, it's a social responsibility because the price is less, and normally we are getting grants for the NGO programs. We organized special first in Kazakhstan service learning courses because we are telling to teach management, marketing, business, and everything. It's good. But what about heart? Because our people mainly from the good families with good money, but we are sending them under these courses into the healthcare system, NGOs, to the child care system, ecology, where they are working with the hand, and through the hand with the hearts. And we are helping them to develop the hearts. Of course, social entrepreneurship lab, for me, it's a good attention to the combining entrepreneurship and social responsibility. NGO expert, we are doing this direction as well. And for example, we have a special project which name is non-limited opportunities, non-limited capabilities. In Russian, it's неограниченные возможности. For whom? It's for people with limited capabilities. It's a special project. Each year we are giving 5 grants for people with limited capabilities, for disabled people who will study for free in our university, on the MBA programs. And that's why maybe we got champion awards, as I told you, on the Simon Awards for the responsible management to our teachers. And on the final position, I would like to invite everybody to entrepreneurship education in rising societies, which will be in the May 30 in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Will be special panel session on social entrepreneurship, and we can do during this session links to show the links between social responsibility management, education responsibility, and social entrepreneurship. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Asylbek. Thank you, Asylbek, for your very interesting, very important speech. Yes, Danica, please.
I would like to ask Jonas, isn't he a candidate for prime, for the, prime championship? He should be. I propose you for the prime championship. You can say that he was publicly proposed here in Russia, and because he really.
Excellent. No, I think there were great ideas in here. I mean, I especially like the idea about the chapter awards, and
yes.
I would just encourage the Prime CE chapter to take that up, because you can show leadership and inspire other chapters to do something on that. So thanks for the remarks.
Thank you very much, Asylbek. Is there any questions from the audience to Asylbek? Okay, thank you, dear colleagues and Irina.
Of course, we are in Russia, and we are discussing the issues related to social responsibility, ethics, relating it to Russian context, to the context of Central and Eastern Europe. But Prime is a global initiative, and we are very happy to have with us Jean-François Fiorina from Grenoble Graduate School of Business of Programs to share his experience and experience of the Western Business School with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear Dior.
Please push the button.
Okay, so good afternoon, Dior. This is a great honor to be with you this afternoon. I've noted that management education is a passion. I totally agree with this idea. So can I have my slides, please? Okay, so I'm the Vice President and Dean of the Program of Grenoble Graduate School of Business, which is a business school in France. So in fact, the questions that we have to ask is, does business really need socially responsible manager? And you will see that my answer is yes. I wrote a post on my blog 2 years ago and asking, do we have to teach tax haven or finance offshore? This was when the Panama Leaks offers went out. And my answer was yes, because it's very important that our students understand everything just to have the good idea and to act. As you mentioned, Irina, we faced during the last years many scandals, financial, cultural, economic, the milk, you say about the milk, about China, we talk about corruption and so on. So I think we need, and this is compulsory, we need to teach and to prepare our students to corporate social responsibility. But the main question is, or the main problem is that how? Because this is a very complex matter. First, try to answer for that. Our mission is on 3 terms. We need on short term prepare our students for jobs. And when they enter to my business schools or French business schools or other business schools, they say, we pay and we want to be prepared for jobs. And we need a quick investment for that. Then we need to prepare them for their midterm, because we know that they will face or change jobs many times in their life. So we need to prepare them to change for jobs, companies, activity, country, place of work, and so on. And the last one, which is very relevant and, let's say, more complicated, we must prepare our students for long term, and we know that they will face some complex situations, and we have no idea of what will be these situations. I took some examples. The globalization is going to grow. Internet and technology are going to grow with new jobs, new companies. There is no limit in the technology. We heard about blockchain, we have about artificial intelligence, we have not subjects, other problematics, other business models. We know that there will have some change in the demography in the futures with Africa, with Indonesia, for example, who will be the third country in the world in terms of populations. We know that we will face some new situation about energy or the sustainability developments. We know that they will face some new situations due to the digital natives and new kind of relations with company, with society, and with their family. And we don't have to forget also terrorism, wars, and conflict. So, in fact, we know that our students, maybe in 5, 10 years, or in the next 10 years or 20 years, they will face some situations, and we have no idea of what will be these situations. We can add some other situations, but Andrews told us some examples. And it's not fiction science. It's impossible to predict that, but they need to be prepared. And for that, we know that for the corporate social responsibility, we have a lot of challenges. It's quite complicated for the students because it is not a job for them, so it's difficult to motivate them. They're aware about corporate social responsibility, but when we talk about it, they said there is no real jobs. We know that the approach must be global, and adapted to local situations. We know that's transdisciplinarity, and it's everywhere, in law, in business, in human resource, in strategy, and so on. We know that there is different types of needs of populations, permanent changes, and a last point, students need to have a lot of maturity for that. When you teach ethics to undergraduates or just to first-year master students, and when you tell them about, or you train them about corruption, and you say, who is going to be corrupted and who is going to corrupt people, nobody will say me. But we know that in the futures, 1, 2, maybe 3 on the population will do that. And they must be aware and prepare for that. So what is the answer of my school? We create and we invent the concept of corporate geopolitics that could be understand the world to act. So what does it mean? It means that that's transdisciplinary approach. For us, it's economy, history, as you can see on the slide, economy, history, geography, anthropology, religions, political science, sociology, law, let's say cultures, and so on. And we try to put everything inside of the students. It's a tool or matrix to help you to analyze, to decide some strategy, to define some strategy, to do risk management, intercultural management, and ethics. Concretely, what are the actions? On the first line, this is the pedagogical answer. All courses have core courses in geopolitics. We also have some electives, so for some students who are willing to go further, we also have double degrees in geopolitics, in history, in philosophy, in NGO management, and so students willing to go further can follow these degrees. We also have international classrooms. It means that in a classroom we have people from different countries. Our faculty is very internationally oriented. It means that students have an approach from different kind of view. All students must have an international experience. It could be internship, it could be exchange agreement. And also they must, if they want to have their degree, they must spend at least 12 months in company, either on internships or consulting projects. And at the end, we also do some publication. We publish case studies. We have some conferences. We also have a festival, which could be like the Gaidar Forum, of course, less organized and less efficient than the Gaidar one. And I will do some advertising for the next one, which would be for the United States. So you can see that I can teach or can tell or speak about the United States in a Russian forum. And we have a lot of panels and people who are going to have all this approach so students can have their own opinion. So that's it from me. Again, it's very important, relevant. From my school, from the strategy or the next strategic plan, we have decided to move from to be a business school to a school for business for society to have an impact, because we think that it's very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there a question to Jean-François, please? If not, Natalie will...
If not, that we continue, yes. So now I would like to give a floor to Evgenia Pashkevich, the Deputy Director of IBS RANEPA. Evgenia, please.
I don't know where to stand, so I guess I'll stand here. Okay, so I had a presentation, but I don't think you really need to look at that. But okay, maybe I'll act as a presentation, but as it is there anyway, so. Okay. Yes. Okay, so I would like to start actually saying a few words about IBS, which is the Institute of Business Studies of the Russian Academy of National Economy and Public Administration, and our relationship with Prime, so to say. So the important thing, I guess, is that we were the first Russian school to sign the Prime initiative. And actually, it was in 2008, so only a year after Prime itself was established. For 4 years after that, till 2012, we were the only contributing Russian business school to Prime. And in 2016, we joined the regional chapter for Central and European Europe. And finally, this last year, we applied for the role of Prime Champion School for the 2-year cycle. I know that the results will be announced in a few days, so I will not, talk about this now. But I hope that it will be a positive outcome, and we're looking forward to it. But really, what I wanted to say is that all these 2 years that we have been trying to integrate the Prime principles into the business and management education in our school. There actually were 2 distinct periods, so to say. So let's say by 2013, even though we all like these principles, we all understand that they're very important, and we're trying to do what we could, but I guess our biggest achievement was a course in corporate social responsibility at different programs, which of course is not very impressive. And the turning point for us was in 2013, where IBS revised its mission. And so in 2013, we revised our mission, and the issue of social responsibility actually became the focal point of our activities. I would like to add also that I looked at mission statements of a number of Russian schools. Well, actually, I haven't found any mission statements where social responsibility would be the focal point. I found 2 schools where business ethics was mentioned, or social responsibility, but it was not the central issue of the mission. So for us, as you see, to form the new generation of socially responsible entrepreneurs and managers became the main driver of our activities. And of course, from that point on, we implemented a really comprehensive approach. And first of all came the organizational changes in the structure. Really what I'm trying to say, because there isn't much time left, is that to be able to really integrate and promote and do something on the practical level with those 6 wonderful principles, you really need to have a very comprehensive approach. It has to be on the management level, it has to be on the level of process and procedures and organizational design, and working with your faculty and working with your staff also, and working with your students. So it's not only teaching the students or introducing some courses into the curriculum, it's really a lot more than just doing this. As you can see, we established a committee on ethics and social responsibility and sustainable development. We formed this, a separate academic department. And this is not all the things that we did, but there were more. But those are probably the salient points, so to say. Now, talking about the curriculum change, like I said, we've had courses on corporate social responsibility and business ethics, like I wouldn't say forever, but for many, many years, primarily at the undergraduate level. But then we complemented this with the course on corruption and anti-corruption, which was in fact developed with the help of the guidelines of the working group, of Prime Working Group, on corruption and anti-corruption curriculum change. Then what we also did, first it was mandatory and there was a lot of skepticism about this, but we are now, it's a standard requirement for all graduation papers and theses on all levels, be that MBA, DBA or whatever, to have a separate section, or it could be a paragraph, which is related to aspects of social responsibility or business ethics or sustainable development, depending on the topic of the thesis. And at first, of course, there was some opposition on the part of the faculty, as it always happens. And there was talk that, you know, it will be artificial if there is a topic that has nothing to do with this. But gradually, we've been doing that now with 3 years, and our faculty have kind of learned how to do this and how to work with the students so that this chapter or paragraph would really be meaningful and would really be something important to the students as well, not just as a fulfillment of the requirement. And of course, we are now taking the approach that maybe separate courses are good, but it's more important to incorporate aspects on social responsibility, ethics, sustainable development in every course that is being taught to the students. Because when we looked at the list of courses that are recommended by Prime and other organizations for the students, you know, there are like dozens and dozens of courses. So if we do that all, that will take up all our curriculum. There will be no time left for everything else. So we're looking at a slightly different approach. Of course, we have those dedicated courses as well, but we're introducing topics in each of the courses in management and business. And then very important thing that we did that we probably should have done a lot earlier, but you know, it's not always that the good idea comes at the right time, but we decided, you know, to look at our faculty actually, and to see whether our faculty themselves believe that they should be teaching social responsibility and sustainable development, and whether they are prepared to teach that, okay? How many of our faculty, for example, even know what are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, for example? How many of them have heard about this? Because we have quite a lot of faculty. So, and we prepared the questionnaire. Those are only 2 questions. There was, of course, a lot more. But the first one was, do you understand the meaning of business ethics, social responsibility, sustainable development, and the difference between them? Of course, there is a lot of overlap, but still each of these terms means something different. And the second question was whether they really think that it's feasible and necessary to teach or to include elements on social responsibility and so on in the curriculum. And we got very interesting results. I will maybe just share one with you, and that was repeated by many people, that social responsibility cannot be taught in the classroom. It cannot be just taught, as a series of lectures or seminars. And even if it's possible for the undergraduate level, but then you would talk about MBA, executive MBA, and DBA students, if there is an academic who comes into the classroom and just starts telling them, kind of a propaganda of everything the good, then this will not be very useful. And the students probably will be very skeptical about this. A very important thing that we did, taking into consideration all of the above, and also the fact that you cannot teach all this just in the classroom, was introducing in the curriculum for undergraduate students a social project. It's a required part of the curriculum, and students get credits for it, where they have to work in different places, like, for example, with homeless people, in children's hospitals, especially cancer hospitals, and so on. And I should say that there was a lot of, I'm just finishing 1 minute, there was a lot of controversy over it on the part of the management as well, and because our undergraduate students, as probably in other schools as well, come from middle and upper middle class families. They're very often sheltered by the parents from everything that's around them, by the uglier sides of life, and they haven't really been exposed to any of those things. But unless you know that the society is diverse and what's really going on, then probably it's difficult to develop the feeling of social responsibility. And I should say that despite our apprehensions, this project was a very big success. And actually the students, they had to write a report and then actually present the report to an audience. And there were children, I would say students, but they're still very young, who were actually crying, talking about the experience with the children and with the underprivileged people that they were working during this social project. So this is it, and there's one more slide. I won't be talking about this, just to say that we as IBS, are doing a lot more. Advancing Russian business education is another part of our mission. So there's really a lot of things going on, which we are doing. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Evgeny. Thank you. So this is the second very good example of implementation, of course, after you, Asylbek. We understand that you are the prime champion. So this is the second example of implementation of prime principles into business education. So is there any questions to Evgenia? Yes, please, Danica, please.
I would just say that I cannot agree. I mean, I appreciate everything what I heard, but I cannot agree that you cannot teach corporate social responsibility or ethics, because it depends how are you teaching it. We are teaching it, and it's a very, well-received subject. Of course, you cannot preach, etc. But if you have a teaching methods, and you have a teaching methods on case studies, you come with the case studies on Siemens, and you discuss with the students, or they bring their own cases, and you discuss about this. And we are teaching ethics through the dilemmas. And that it is, So, for instance, in Siemens, we didn't mention Siemens here. We were mentioning Volkswagen because it's a more recent case. But I don't know whether you realize that Siemens was gaining by cheating, by corruption, $1.3 billion. But they had to pay the punishment $1.5 billion, So, that's very interesting case to discuss, and and all the world was talking about. Now it's Volkswagen. There are many others like Parmalat, etc. Parmalat. So I understood that you wanted to say it's not possible just by preaching, but it is possible.
Yes, just a very brief response. Actually, this was something that some of our faculty thought, and that transpired in the survey, which is not exactly right, of course. And we're using a variety of learning experience for students at all different levels of programs, of course, and I agree with you that it can be done through case studies and so on and so forth.
Thank you. So it was a misunderstanding.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Irina.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Ekaterina Ivanova, Assistant Professor from the Department of Sustainable Management from, I can never pronounce the university, although we cooperate with them, Kaiserslautern University from Germany, right?
Yes. Thank you very much. Irina, I don't know where, can you...
You can, yeah. And Andrew has left it not because he was bored, but he was invited for the interview.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a big honor to be here. I think I'm the youngest presenter here, so it's my privilege to be for the first time at the Gaidar Forum, and I wanted to explain what is Kaiserslautern. Well, many of you, for those of you...
We know where it is.
What? Okay, for those of you... Yeah, I can use this one, so I don't need that one, sorry. For the gentlemen sitting here, you might have heard the football team Kaiserslautern. They used to be champions a couple of decades ago, but now Kaiserslautern is also famous for Industry 4.0. This is the term that was invented there. And then we have the largest American military base outside of the US. In the city of 100,000 population, 100,000 are Americans living there. So it's just very fun for me being Russian, living in Germany with Americans around. So there are 3 languages that are spoken there. But this is not the point that I want to talk here about. I only have like 10 minutes. And what I would like to talk with you about is what I'm doing in the classroom in Germany and in Russia, because I'm also teaching at Higher School of Economics, and soon I'll be teaching here at this university the course on sustainability mindset. And personally, I'm also a member of the Sustainability Mindset Working Group at Prime with Isabel Rimanossi, who's head of it, and my big source of inspiration. The dilemma that I am facing today is that neither one of the universities where I'm teaching is part of the Prime. But we are moving into that direction, so it's not easy to convince the university to pay for it. So this is the first issue that I would like to point out, but I need a clicker. Okay, 5 minutes. Then I'm not going to repeat Jonas. I wanted to start with a quote from Irish poet Yeats. Education is not feeling of a pail, but the lightning of a fire. So this is about the passion that we heard before, and this is what I'm trying to do with my students here in Germany and in Russia. Well, you all know that we live now in a time when economic models are changing. We have sharing economy, conscious capitalism, certified B Corps coming from the US and now spreading to Italy. Those are just my favorite examples. If you'll ever have a chance to read a book just recently, which was published recently by an Austrian author, Sternad, it's digging deeper how purpose-driven enterprises create real value. I really love it. But the interface, one of the best examples, and Austrian Sonnentor and some others from around the world. Yes, yes. Oh, congratulations. So we have so many coincidences here. I'm not going to repeat that. We have heard it already. We have, here I only wanted to say that we only have, by now in Russia, 6 signatories, if I'm right, and in Germany it's just 31. So I think we need more. And I even have an idea of one more principle coming from Oliver Lush. I don't know how many of you know him, but I think he does a tremendous job promoting Prime around the world. And this is that we educators should also be role models for our teachers. So we also should show in practice what we are preaching. It's not just about entertaining our students, convincing them CSR, sustainability are important things to be done. Engagement model, great article that you have done, so I really like it. That's why I include it in the presentation, but have no time to cover it. SDGs, we have seen them all. I also love, yes, Jonas is the, I was trying to get prepared, very good. But from this, I would only like to say that Prime is a network of networks. So this is the right network for all of those who are doing teaching on CSR, sustainability, business ethics. Now I would like to turn to the point of my presentation. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Aim to Flourish. I don't know how many of you have heard about that before in the audience. Anyone knows what that is? Looks like no. Okay. It has been launched again at Prime Global Forum 2 years, almost 3 years ago now. And this is the first higher education curriculum, story platform, and the prize for global goals, SDGs. And it's been initiated at the Case Western Reserve University in the United States. How does Aim to Flourish work? It starts in the classroom, where students have to find entrepreneurs or managers of big corporations, conduct an appreciative inquiry interview with them, and write a story, which will be later on published on the website of Aim to Flourish. And it's not only about this. At the end, the best stories are being rewarded, so it's a competition. And I've done that I'm the first one who is doing this in Russia at the Higher School of Economics, and we're starting the same in Germany. I have two first stories coming from Germany at the same time. So students really like this experience. That's how it works. This is the first stories that were awarded. So each story is connected to one of the SDGs. And there are winners, and those are the global winners that you can see on this slide. That's how it looks like when students are making interviews. These pictures, BASF is from Ludwigshafen. This is one of the big German companies where my students did an interview about housing restructuring project at BASF. And two more pictures are from Russia. On the bottom corner, it's Pepsi and their CSR manager that gave an interview. On the group of students are with Artem Agabekov, founder of Fabrika Oken Windows Factory. That was a great story that they did. This is how it looks like at the Aim to Flourish platform. It's been relaunched now, so hopefully tomorrow it will be online. Americans are normally very good with deadlines, but for some reason they're 2 weeks behind with updating the platform. But still, soon they'll be online, so I do encourage you to check the website to see what that is. Why students are so much engaged in this? They also are writing reflections after each interview is done. So here they see the inspiration from the people who are really doing CSR in their companies, and that's how it works. So I see the eyes of my students that are shining. I see entrepreneurs who are happy being interviewed. And it's also in line with it doesn't only work with the Russian companies, it works with international companies. So there are just 2 examples of the stories that my students did. And yeah, everybody were happy about that. It's an example of what Evgeny just told us, that CSR can not only be taught in the classroom. That's this type of experiential learning is how you can teach it outside of it. Because I also have a lot of students who are skeptical about CSR when they come to my class. Then you can also promote Aim to Flourish stories. That's what I do on my Facebook page. Sometimes I write in Russian or in English, depends on which audience I want to reach. So it's a good way of promoting this. Also, Twitter is very helpful in that, and that's what Aim to Flourish does itself. They're also promoting some of the stories. And of course, the university website. So Higher School of Economics is also happy to hear what students are doing. And this is an excellent material that you can provide them with. So what's the impact of Aim to Flourish? For students, it helps them to identify existing sustainable innovations. They learn appreciative inquiry as a method. They personally connect to leaders and enterprises. For entrepreneurs, they are raising awareness about successful business practices. They gain recognition locally, regionally, and globally because there is this competitive element. And it just feels good for them to tell the students their inspiring stories. For the business community, it's a benchmark for sustainable innovators. It raises expectations, and there is this Me Too phenomenon. I have already a line of entrepreneurs who wants to get interviewed. So I think it's a good thing to do. For faculty and other students, they'll learn more about what exists in the world. There is a community of Aim to Flourish professors, around 100 already from all over the world. And of course, there is also an alumni community of students. There is a special designated group on Facebook for that. Also, for the community generally, it's a way to win the motivation for these innovations to get replicated. It's a source of inspiration for followers, and this is a way to channel the third mission of the university. And for university itself, it helps businesses to connect. It helps universities to connect with businesses. Proves thought leadership. That's what universities like RANEPA are expected to, and positioning in the global goals agenda. So it's very practical, and this is just a picture from last Academy of Management where we did the same kind of panel on Aim to Flourish with Chris Laszlo on the left, the founder of the Aim to Flourish platform, and some of the best cases coming from all over the world. So this is to say that you can also join. I feel lonely being the only one, but I know my colleagues in St. Petersburg are going to join next semester. And there'll be some stories coming not only from Moscow, but also maybe from St. Petersburg and Yekaterinburg. And yeah, questions. And yeah, let's keep in touch. If you have any questions, I'm open.
One question. Thank you very much. This is what passion is about.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Katerina. You can stay here. Oh, okay, Yuri. Okay. Now I would like to give a floor to Yuri Blagov, and I know how difficult it is to be the last one between the session and the break. Yuri, please, the break. And the end, of course. Yuri is the director of the Center of the Social Corporate Responsibility of Pricewaterhouse in the St. Petersburg State University.
Well, thank you. Frankly speaking, it's a privilege to be the very last in the line because I can summarize more than to speak. That's why, let me be brief. I just want to emphasize probably 4 important points. First of all, because I'm not from here, I'm from St. Petersburg, and I spent 5 hours today in the train. That's why let me introduce myself very briefly. I'm from Graduate School of Management, St. Petersburg State University, and this year we celebrate 25th anniversary since we started our project. And 25 years ago, when we started, we got just 2 very simple dreams. The first one, to obtain Triple Crown accreditation. And the second one, to create ourselves as responsible leaders. Concerning accreditations, now we've got already 2 of them, and now we are searching for a CSB, and hopefully we'll be successful in 1 or 2 years. But concerning responsible leadership, I just want to say that these 2 targets are very much connected one to another. Second, today we started our talks with sustainability development goals. Seriously, it's very important to talk this way because unfortunately, in many cases, we are trying to treat the very idea of CDGs like just another version of Millennium Goals or another targets or just kind of fashion. No. Please pay attention. Now we should talk about another quality of global problems. And for today, sustainability development goals are not about to improve something, to do business better, to improve particular KPIs. No. Now the very set of CDGs is about how to survive, how to maintain the very civilization. That's why I'm not sure that it makes sense to make choice, maybe to find 1 or 2 goals and to work with them. No. Now the very paradigm is different. Even the very paradigm of sustainability now changed very much, because now we should not just to think about future generations. Now we should think about business in society and society in nature, so-called business in nature paradigm. It's very much different. Then the third point I want to talk. what should we do in this situation when we faced this new paradigm? First, it seems to me, ironically, it's a new challenge as well as new opportunities for businesses and for CSR managers. Because, you know, based on my experiences, CSR managers are kind of very strange animals in the zoo because they're talking a lot about everything, but in real sense, they can manage not so much in the companies. But now, when companies, not only in Russia, everywhere in the world, they started to realize this new paradigm, CSR managers, they've got a chance actually not just to communicate, but to manage sustainability for the entire organization. Absolutely the same opportunities now we've got now in business education. Because in many schools, and today already we've got some very, very interesting, actually brilliant examples, in many schools we are trying to introduce not just one, but system of courses. For example, in our school we have CSR and sustainability related courses in every program. We conducted, for example, for bachelors, we teach only obligatory courses, business ethics plus CSR plus sustainability supply chain plus elective one for social entrepreneurship, something like 100, 120 hours. It's not enough. Because it's absolutely important to introduce kind of mainstreaming and what we are trying to do, not only to do research, not only to work with companies in our center. We introduced a couple of months ago, it's maybe interesting experience, particular council for prime implementation to the entire school. And we actually created kind of board from 10 serious professors in our school from different departments with the purpose not only to introduce sustainability development goals and CSR ideas into every particular course, but to create the very system and to try to work with this system. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. And of course, we have pretty interesting experience. If you're interested in, our reports are available in Prime website, but just one, maybe the very last point. We are working with students. It's a great point to work with students, but today, ironically, no one used to talk about millennials. You know, it's a fashion. Someone should. And why not to talk about millennials? For example, 10 years ago, when we tried to teach our students what does it mean responsible business, sustainability, the main problem was to open eyes of business students that there is something behind the profit. Now the situation is completely different. My bachelor students, they do believe in sustainability. They're doing a lot of volunteering things, and my main issue is just to explain, guys, there is business on behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yuri. Thank you. You did a great work. Don't disappear. Just sit with us, please. So, thank you so much, all of you, for coming for this, I think, the very interesting but very difficult by the understanding and the work which we should do, all of us, for Prime session. And I want to give Irina floor just to make a short summary, and because we don't, the people, yes, they show up, we don't have any time more. We need to.
We've been given a sign.
Yes.
So, first of all, I have to say thank you very much to all of you for being patient audience, active listeners. And of course, big thank you go to all the panelists for readiness to share the experience. But the most of all, thank you for your passion. Because success or promotion of social responsibility, ethics, sustainability really depends on passion. How passionate you are, so you can inspire students, you can make them passionate as well. I really encourage those schools who are not still signatories to Prime to join the initiative, to join Prime Chapter CE, to come to the meetings, so that to get the experience, also to share the experience. And as I said, that we're now finalizing the agenda for the April meeting, which is in Riga, and which is going to be also 2 years of Prime Chapter CE, to attend Siemens events, IMTA, also Siemens annual conference, which is going to be this year in Prague, and very certainly going to be a session also responsible management. But summarizing, thank you very much.
And I also want to tell you that Rabbi will have the roundtable discussion on the Prime item in University of Plekhanov University, and this is in our list of activities for 2018. You can see it on the RABE website. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Be healthy and be very happy.
And well said.